And good morning. My name is Ron Daniels. I'm going to be the moderator of this panel. I'm a general practitioner down in Dodge County, which is right in the middle of middle Georgia. I have a very varied practice. I do everything from representing some governments and municipal entities to doing some state agency work to doing business litigation, car wreck cases, uh, real estate closing. So it's pretty much what you imagine when you say a general practitioner. If it comes in the door, my job is either can I handle this or find somebody that can help you. And so I'm going to let our other two panelists introduce themselves, starting on my left.
I'm James Dutton. I am the Geek lawyer. We do mostly criminal defense. That's probably the total number of cases, is mostly criminal defense. But I also specialize in small businesses, specifically geeky business, specifically stuff that you guys have probably all heard of. So my wife's also a CPA, so we're sort of the one-stop shop for all things geek small business. But when it comes to today's panel, my law firm took these cameras all the way to the Supreme Court twice, and even testified in front of the Senate subcommittee about them, and can't wait to share the findings. Am I nice and loud? Oh, all right.
And hi, everyone. I'm Hayley Tsukayama. I am Associate Director of Legislative Activism at the Electronic Frontier Foundation, which is a member-supported digital civil rights nonprofit. Thanks for all being here. I am not a lawyer, for which I hope you will forgive me. But at EFF, I manage our state-level legislative portfolio and have looked into speed cameras in several states. So happy to be here.
And I'll give you the disclaimer that I generally do before we start any of these panels, that at least me and James, who are attorneys, though Hayley, I think, could probably hold her weight with both of us, to be honest with you. But you are not our clients. We are not giving you legal advice. You can't rely on it. We're giving you information. So
what he said. That's right.
So and the way we're going to do this is we have a microphone out there. We're going to kind of get things kicked off up here, but if at any point in time anybody has questions, come down to the mic. Do ask that you say the question very clearly in the mic, because we are recording it, and you don't want people just saying, oh, well, we're going to answer questions, and people not watching video be able to say, well, what was the question to begin with? So which one of you wants to kick us off with where we are in terms of camera enforcement? If you had this panel last year, we had it, it was pre the efforts to try to get rid of these things. We talked about all the nasties and the fact that there's no real appeal, and
that's right,
all those things. So which one of you wants to start?
I can give us a brief timeline, bring us up to where we are. Legislatures love things that sound great to their constituents, but this is the puppies and fluffy bunny law. How could you vote against the puppies and fluffy bunny law? School zone safety. How can you be against school zone safety? So they passed this law with probably a good intent. Again, who's against school zone safety? When it was implemented, Spalding County, where I'm from, is one of the first early implementers of this. It's implemented unilaterally by our sheriff with no vote from the county commissioners. But again, you can't really blame the workman for using the tool he's given. You blame the person who made the bad tool. Again, this was designed to increase school safety, but in Spalding County, even though there's only about 70,000 people in Spalding County, there were several schools where kids would walk to school. There were crossing guards. Now that we have this safety program, there are no more crossing guards. And yet, in the 2 years that we've had these, they've written over 150,000 of these tickets just in my county, which means no one's slowing down, and yet there's no more crossing guards. So the school zone safety camera plan has arguably made kids less safe. And yet, it's only a $100 ticket, right? Well, why is it only $100? Because it's not worth fighting. It's not worth hiring an attorney and paying thousands and going through the motions. But even when you do, you don't really get all your rights. And that's really where I started getting involved with this. Not, I don't want to get political in any way or religious, but in a very fundamental sense, our rights come from our creator, not the government. The Constitution protects our God-given rights from government overreach. Like, that's sort of the foundation documents, that's what they say. So when a government comes in and says, actually, you don't get to face your accuser. Actually, you are guilty until proven innocent, and not what it says in the Constitution. That's where defense attorneys come in and go, hey, wait a minute. That's not what this says. You have to do better. And in this instance, just because you're sent this ticket, that is the presumption of guilt. The law itself says that. And you can write an affidavit or stand in front of the court under oath and say, it wasn't me driving. But then the next question is, well, who was? Well, I have a Fifth Amendment right to just stand here and be quiet, and you have to prove that I'm guilty, but not in these. Now, the law also says repeatedly, it's not criminal. This is not criminal. This is not criminal. This is not criminal. And so what's the other option? It's civil, right? Out in Spalding County, the court has decided that these are administrative, which means you don't get a jury trial, which means you don't get depositions, which means you don't get discovery. And you go, hey, wait a minute, that's just not how the law works. That's not how the rules of evidence work. I could go into over and over and over all of the ways that these laws are just the holes in the law. The good thing in Spalding County is that our sheriff understands that there's holes in it, and our court understands that there's holes in it. In fact, they were very sympathetic during our hearings to try to set up a good appeal, because even the judge said, hey, I'm doing the best we can with this. The law itself is internally contradictive. So he even put on the record, we hope they take this appeal and they hope they give us an answer so that we can know how to better do it. Because every single county in Georgia does it differently. And that's another, it's called equal protection of the law. And so it's the same law, so it should be treated the same everywhere. And you're just not. So we appealed on what's called an interlocutory appeal, which means it's an appeal on just the motion. We went in and said, hey, I want to depose these people. Hey, I want to get interlocutories. I wanted them to answer questions. I want a jury trial. Here's all these motions. And the judge said, nope, I'm denying all of them so that you can appeal, because I want them to give us directions. We went up and appealed. And I'll be honest, I don't do a lot of appeals. We always say appeals are for losers because you have to lose to appeal. And that, not to brag, but that doesn't happen to me very much. So we appealed, and they said, oh no, this is a constitutional issue. So it has to go straight to the state Supreme Court. And so it went straight to the state Supreme Court because we're making these constitutional arguments. And the state Supreme Court essentially said, no one's lost yet. There's no actual damage, so go back, have the full hearing, and come back. Okay, sure. We literally went back to the court, and I'll give you some inside baseball here. I printed the transcripts and handed one to the judge and handed one to the prosecutor, and we essentially read off what had happened in the earlier one, so we didn't have to like reinvent the wheel. But also that means I can send the exact same appeal because we said the same words. But we actually discovered some more issues, so I added additional issues, and this time it went straight to the Supreme Court, and they asked for some more documentation. And 3 months later, they asked for some more documentation. A couple months later, they asked for some more documentation, and then they finally rendered a decision that said, this isn't a constitutional issue, so you lose. Cool. So while all that was happening, because I was taking point on this sort of statewide, a lot of attorneys from all over the state were calling me and saying, hey, have you made this argument? No, but send it to me, and I'll add that to the. So I was sort of the point guy going all the way. State legislatures got involved, and we know that in this last session, both the House and Senate had bills trying to outlaw this sort of unconstitutional action, policing for profit, essentially. It passed the House. We worked super hard to get that done. And then when it came to the Senate, it stalled up a little bit. So they called a Senate subcommittee hearing on this at 5 p.m. or 6 a.m. the next morning, because they have to have a hearing. So I sped my way back up here and spent the night in Atlanta so I could make it on time to their 6 a.m. hearing.
Surely not speak.
Surely not. Clearly, I would never. admit to a crime here on the microphone.
I did last night.
A little bit.
Seatbelts. It's just
Seatbelts.
you know.
So we spoke before the committee. I listened to 2 hours of invited guests. All they had to say was, "Look at how much money we're making. Look at how much money we're making. This is how much money this brings in. Look at all this money we're making." No one said anything about kids, about safety, about this is slowing people down. No one. Senator Albers is very sympathetic. He's the chair of the subcommittee and was really cross-examining. Hey, but wait a minute. What about this? He, however, even though he's the chair of that subcommittee, was letting the vice chair lead the meeting. When I came up to speak after Judge Long from Butts County, who came in and said, no one has raised the point that when they came in my office and tried to get me to implement this in Butts County, they never spoke about safety. They never spoke about kids. All they said was, this is how much money we can guarantee that you're going to make. And he went, that's not my job. My job isn't to make money. My job is safety and enforcing the Constitution. And so I spoke after him, and I made them mad. I made them upset. They got so upset that they tried to cancel some of the local legislation that was happening in Spalding County that was helpful for the county. They got really personally incensed about it. And now, I'm not going to name any names. We're hoping they're going to pass this in the coming session. But the level of response that I got, the hate that we got in response was not just unexpected, but amazing. Just an unbelievable amount. Now, since people have told me about all the money that these corporations are spending on lobbying, about how many relatives of many elected officials work on their board and get paid to be members of their boards. But we estimate, because these are for-profit corporations all out of state, we estimate that their portion of the law statewide nets them around $150 million a year, and that they're in 30 different states. And so if Georgia is sort of your average size state, right? That means what, $4.5 billion nationwide in a policing for profit scheme. So I don't think that I was quite dialed into that when I went up and argued in front of the Senate. I thought it was like, hey, we're all here to do the right thing, right? And I was met with something that I didn't expect. I was met with very unsympathetic. Now, again, Senator Albers was very sympathetic and was very in. Several of the House members are very, very, very pro. We got to get rid of this. This is not what we thought we were passing when we passed it. We need to clean this up. And I fully expect them to do the right thing in the coming session. But I hope that that's, again, not just the stars in my eyes speaking, hopefully. So that sort of has brought us up to today. Not that I want to, monopolize the time up here, but that's sort of the short synopsis of what the timeline is. With the state legislature is a 2-year session. So last year was the first of 2. So because they both passed something, it goes into sort of a reconciliation. So both those bills are still alive. And we hope that they'll be able to reconcile them and get it done this year. In my opinion, the law is indefensible. It's indefensible. Even if you argued it wasn't unconstitutional in 87 ways, which I believe it is, it's not helping children be safer. It's not helping children be safe. In fact, in a lot of ways, it's making neighborhoods less safe. A lot of these schools are in neighborhoods, and people are avoiding the school zone and thus driving through the neighborhoods. So you're increasing traffic where kids are. So in a lot of ways, this has made kids less safe. So even if that's the only thing, but again, to a defense attorney, the more important part is our creator has endowed us with certain inalienable rights, and we need to protect those. So,
Hayley?
I mean, I'm just gonna.
Sorry. We can attorneys get going, man, and we can pontificate all day.
I mean, that was really fascinating. I mean, I think what I can contribute, we weren't involved in the Georgia fight, but certainly it fits a playbook that I have seen in other states. I mean, as you say, it's incredibly popular legislation for legislators to back because, of course, it sounds great. It's, you
Who
know,
votes against school?
right. Who's like, no, road deaths. I have no opinion.
Right.
Particularly when it's children. So it's very easy to convince lawmakers to that it's a pressing need. And then, as you say, the money. I mean, I feel like municipalities and counties across the country are seeing budget constraints. It's very, very appealing, right? To say, well, and it'll be an income stream. But you know, there are a lot of, as you say, issues with due process, right? Like,
That's right.
how do you know who is actually driving the car? There's also, you know, like in California, for example, they're not just in school zones. So, you know, we're doing pilots in several cities, and so then it becomes a question of like, where are you placing those cameras? In what neighborhoods? Are, you know, who's going to be surveilled and hit by these tickets the most often? You know, it sounds like the penalties here, you said it's $100.
It's $100 for the school zone, but they also have a school bus camera, and those are $1,000.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's, you know, that's a lot of money for people, and as you say, like, it's set at a price where people are like, is it worth fighting or not? Yeah. And so it can be really all those factors can stack up on certain populations, right? And so we're very concerned about sort of, you know, placement as well as you say, all the due processes.
I think you alluded to the for-profit corporations as part of this. Do either of you want to speak? It's really two companies, and they're both, one's in Tennessee and one's in Maryland.
So the one in Spalding is actually out of Arizona and Seattle, and I think there's 6 total in Georgia.
Yeah.
But they and one of them actually does it very well. I'll let you know, credit where credit's due. A broken clock is right twice a day. They're the only ones that actually use a laser as opposed to radar. The machine works very differently. But the ones in Spalding County are run by a company called Bureau Mobility, and the notice that you get in the mail has the seal of the Spalding County or the city of Griffin on it. And it looks like, oh, this is an official document. It's not. It's from a for-profit out-of-state company threatening you with a lawsuit. It's nothing official. And then in very small writing on the back, it's like, I'm gonna appeal this. You know, like, and you have to really get out there and win. And I've represented over 50 people on these. When you go in and you go, hey, I want a hearing, the next notice you get, again, from the for-profit corporation that looks like it's from the sheriff's department says, sorry, you're too late to ask for a hearing. You just have to pay. Now, if you hit my dog and I want to sue you and I serve you with a lawsuit and you go, but I don't think I hit your dog. I think it must have been somebody else. I want to have a hearing. And I sent you an official document that said, you don't get a hearing, you have to pay. I would be found in contempt. They would take my bar license. You can't do that. Like, you get a hearing and I can't tell you that you don't. Every single client, every single time, for myself, for my mom, for, you know, other people that we've represented, every single time they send us a notice that says, sorry, it's too late, you have to. You just wait a minute. So the for-profits do it at a spectrum of how well and how careful they do it. The other issue people bring up a lot is, well, I got this ticket out of the school zone time. School zone wasn't active at that time. And those are pretty simple in my county, because you just say, hey, this was the wrong time, and they go, oh, we'll dismiss it. But the trick is the cameras are on all the time, 24/7. They only send out the tickets during those time windows. But every time you drive past, it scans your license, and it has access to the car registration database, which contains your address, your date of birth, your name, your tax history, your voter registration, your voting history. And every single time that you pass one of these things, it scans you. And so all of that information goes to this for-profit corporation who gets to keep it. They get to sell it. They get to use it. Well, but we don't write tickets at that time. Yeah, but that's not the point. the point is my privacy. Yeah, well, you're in public. Yeah, but you're still tracking me and selling me it. If I got sideswiped and then the guy drives off and I call one of my sheriff buddies and go, hey, I got his tag number. Can you look him up? And they do that. That's illegal. They can't do that. But this corporation gets to look up in that database every single car that passes every single one of these cameras 24 hours a day. And you just go, well, wait a minute, guys. Why did you make a law that gives them special access that the normal citizens don't have? How are they able to put the seal of the sheriff on their official notifications? How are they gonna, so it's really, really frustrating. I want to also point out that there is no recorded instance in the history of Spalding County, which was started in 1852, of any child ever being hit, injured, or killed in a school. Not once. We've written 150,000 of these tickets.
Are the contracts like with the counties, or how are? I'm just
It is-
curious. If you have control over terms in any way, could you say data retention? Could you say use limitation?
I think it's a negotiable thing,
Mhm.
but in most instances, that it is unilaterally created by the sheriff and the company. So, not to talk too much politics, but I'm actually one of the county commissioners in Spalding, and this didn't come before us. We didn't vote on this. Had we would end it, but it was unilaterally our sheriff, who again I'm not upset at. I don't think that he's doing something wrong. He's using the tool the state legislature gave him. It's just a broken and terrible tool. So I really support our sheriff. I think he's a great guy. He's just wrong on this, and he's wrong on this until the state tells him he's not. So, but yeah, it's a unilateral thing. The school bus arm tickets are the school board that puts those out, and then inside the city limits, I don't know, but I don't think our city council voted on either. I think it's just part of the police department.
I will say from other jurisdictions in Georgia, some of them are like, I think Warner Robins in particular, they've got some that are in the city limits that are, and the city council have to actually vote on because the police chief doesn't have the authority to do it. But
Right.
in Georgia, sheriff is a constitutional officer. They don't have to go through the county commissioners to contract and say, hey, we want this service. So if a vendor comes to them and says, we want to do this, I'm like, okay, it's law enforcement. Okay, I'm going to do it. And I don't know about your sheriff. Never met him. Maybe a good guy.
Okay.
Maybe, I represent 3 different counties, and sometimes the sheriffs do not ask me my thoughts on contracts before they sign them.
Before they,
It's generally a bad idea as the county attorney to not know about the contracts your sheriff signing. But
he gets to. He's a constitutional
constitutional
officer.
officer can do that.
Hey, there's no veto power. There's no, and the funny thing about it is, sheriffs are extremely powerful in the state of Georgia. If the county decides not to fund the sheriff's full budget, the sheriff can sue the county and get his full budget, and the county has to pay for his lawyer to sue the county. I mean, that's how powerful sheriffs are. So it's, again, for the most part, there are some counties between here and Spalding County that we won't mention, but for the most part, our sheriffs are really great. I mean, we really do have a bunch of really law-abiding folks. We were contemplating at one point passing some local legislation, and our sheriff boldly came before us and said, I don't think this is constitutional, and if you pass it, I'm not enforcing it. Like, I don't think this is constitutional. I'm just not doing it. So, again, I have the utmost respect for our sheriff, even our solicitor, the prosecutor in these cases. When I brought these issues, I come and argue, and the judge goes, okay, Mr. Shepard, and he goes, okay, he goes to speak, and I go, objection, Your Honor. He doesn't have the authority to argue these cases. There's a specific statute that outlines exactly what a solicitor can and can't argue in which cases, and none of them are administrative. So, hey, if you say this is administrative, then you've got to get a guy, and it can't be him. The law tells him specifically what he can do. And to his credit, our solicitor said, Judge, he's right. I can't argue this. And the judge goes, somebody's got to. It's you today. And again, we were the plan. I'm going to use that word loosely because it wasn't. But like, the idea was, we're going to create enough appealable issues that they're going to have to rule on this and have to give us guidance. That was the hope. Please tell us what to do with this just dog turd of a law. Like, it doesn't make any sense. How are we supposed to execute this? And they just said, no, thank you. So that makes it that much more frustrating when even the solicitor goes, yeah, I'm not supposed to be here. So Spalding County really had a perfect storm of a sheriff who was on board, a judge who was on board, a solicitor who was on board to like, hey, tell us what we're supposed to do with this. We're not just out here, grabbing it for the money, but like, what should we do? And then we got there, they just said, oh, no, thanks. So that disappointing is tragic is probably a better word for it.
Right. And frustrating because even though you had all those factors line up, that's obviously not going to be the case in every county.
The hundreds of hours that we have worked on this, and then just be like, oh, no, thanks. And frustrating.
Yes. And so for the law to not make any sort of suggestion or, to have this, enforced equally across the state, to have even minimum standards in across the state, that is really, I don't know. It's not how I would want it. Not how I would want to write a law.
Well, you guys know the rules of evidence have hearsay. Hey, I heard this person say that. Whoa, you can't bring that in. That person has to say it. We have to get the first-hand account. So when you are given a speed ticket, you get to say, hey, I want to make sure that you're calibrated correctly. Like, go and calibrate. And the way they do that with the radar is they actually use 2 tuning forks, and like one is calibrated to like 45 and one calibrated 65, and they bang them together, and like it's this whole rigmarole. They have to be like, yep, it's calibrated. And in this instance, the machine calibrates itself once an hour. Yep, I'm fine. Yep, I'm fine. But initially, someone does calibrate it remotely. They subcontract with a firm that subcontracts with a firm that subcontracts with the firm that enforces the cameras. So when we go, hey, we want to see the calibration check, they go, sure, here you go. And it's 4 deep hearsay. Oh, this person told this person that told this person that told me that this is, and then, but officer, you got this in an email? Yeah, I got this. Guys, someone has to come in here and tell me. I get to face my accuser. And again, these are undisputed facts that on any other case, they go, yeah, that's such garbage. You can't bring that in. Someone has to come in and give firsthand testimony.
Except for debt collection cases. They think that is great in those too.
That's a good point. So again, there's just all these, like, any one of these issues is like a slam dunk. And then, so, yeah, frustrating. It makes it personal. I'm frustrated about it, but like, think of all the people that $100 to me is like, well, I'll have to come back a day early from the beach. Like $100 to somebody in Spalding County where the average income is around $35,000 a year. Like, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. And they usually run about a month, if not 2 months behind. So by the time you're getting one of these tickets, you're going to get several.
Right. So, and what if you were late to work 3 days in about 3 months, right?
Right. And all of a sudden it's like, oh crap, like this is, now my kids aren't going to get to eat. Now my kids aren't going to get Christmas. So this is a big deal to a lot of Georgians. Again, 150,000 of these tickets have been written in little tiny. So that's a lot. And again, $100, for somebody with their own law firm, and like it's $100 still $100, but like $100 to somebody who is on SNAP and EBT, and like that's a lot. That's a lot. So, and disproportionately, that's who's getting these things. Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about, you mentioned that we've got 2 different bills. Hopefully they get reconciled, one passes. What do they actually do functionally?
Thank you.
Well, as I said, I wasn't involved necessarily in that thing, but I looked it up and read. I mean, if you wanted to add that.
Well, the House version is very much a, hey, we're gonna just rescind our last law, like, and we're gonna get rid of these. The Senate version came in. There were 2 Senate bills. One was a correct oh, well, let's provide for more protections and make sure that you get a jury trial and make sure that you, but that law, while helping with some of the rights, actually made it logistically infeasible for the counties. So the county has to pay the judge and has to pay the bailiffs and has to pay the court clerks and all these people that execute on these hearings. And then all the money goes to the sheriff's department. So ours is $100, but 25 of it goes to the court for like helping, to defray that cost. But if the Fix-It bill would have passed, we're going to have 150,000 jury trials, which would require 4, if not 5, state court judges, which are, to set up a whole state courtroom, it's around $2 million a year. And we don't collect that much in these. So the sheriff would be getting money, but it would be costing the county more money to execute the tickets than what the sheriff would be getting with the Fix-It bill. So the Fix-It bill also shifted the amount, the split, so that the for-profit corporation would get 50% of that collected. So we would actually take in less, but spend a ton more executing. So it's like,
It wasn't great math for you.
so,
Yeah.
but it still didn't fix all the problems,
Right.
all the hearsay issues. No one, and I'm going, hey, if you're making 150 million a year just from Georgia, then on our court dates, you should have someone zoom in at the very least and go, yeah, it was me, I calibrated it. This is, something. I mean, there's a way to do it, and they're just not requiring any of that. So the Senate passed a bill as well that sunset these, I want to say after 2 years, which, is better than poking the eye, but like it's not an immediate. I'd rather you acknowledge that this is bad and get rid of it. And there were some other issues with the Senate one. The Senate kind of watered down the House one. But again, they have to go through reconciliation, and I hope they'll both be just, let's dump these starting July 1st, 2026.
And so what you think is what's going to come up next year is going to be a version of the Fix-It bill, or is it going to be, are they going to take another run at Maine?
Any bill passed in 2025. So Georgia has a 40-day legislative window.
Mhm.
So they're only in session for 40 days. And on the last day, if you didn't pass it, it didn't get done. So the Senate bill passed on the very last day. So that's not enough time for it to like go through the whole process and match with the House bill. So because it's a 2-year cycle, anything that passed automatically comes back up in this session and like doesn't have to start over. It kind of starts where it was.
Mhm.
So I think virtually immediately it'll start the reconciliation process. And then again, there'll have to be some votes there and some subcommittees, but with enough pressure, and a lot of the champions that are House representative members, they're going to the Senate subcommittee meetings and saying, hey guys, this is not okay. We have to do something about this. And this year isn't an election year, but next year is. So the groundswell of, I was gonna say disapproval, but hate is a better word for these tickets
Yeah.
across the state has affected the legislatures. And so they're hearing that. That is a big thing that we can all do. Like, as an elected official, if I get one email, I go, there's an issue. If I get 20 emails about something, oh boy. If I get phone calls, if my staff is getting like, oh boy, I need to address this. This is an issue. So, and it's the same thing with state legislators. If you guys send your state legislature, unless they're openly going, we need to end these already, then say, okay, who else do I need to call? Call those people's offices.
You can back
email
them up, though.
Yeah, that's right. Call them and say, thank you for continuing this fight. And because ultimately they're the ones that are going to get it over, past the post. We can only vote them out, and they're going to re-election is 90% of the time the incumbent's getting reelected. But in an election year, if there's a groundswell of hate like this against something that they control, that changes minds. That changes their opinion. So please.
You got a question?
It's hot.
Oh, stall for time. Do you think the Fix-It bill was purposely designed so basically people would just stop having them? It's cost so much money to we got to throw it out.
I don't. I think the Fix-It bill was also, just like the initial bill, I think it was written by the corporation.
Yeah.
I honestly do. I have nothing to back that up, but
Now we have a
gut
question.
tells me that that's.
I just want to point out I'm from Florida, at least half the time. I'm pretty sure if they became aware of this potential, well, this constitutional violation, but source of revenue would win every single time. A ticket that people are too lazy to dispute, I think we'd have millions of
For
tickets.
school zones, we're protecting children.
I've already got one of these school zone tickets from a place that hasn't even announced they have the robot cameras yet. And people seem to still be supporting it, especially because they're pushing it to the public as source of revenue, not just safety. So it's,
But we hear that from a lot of people. Well, then slow down. Well, if you didn't speed, hey, that's just not how our law works. Hey, that's just not how the Constitution works. Like, you're innocent until proven guilty. Yes. That's right. The fact that they're, even if they're not writing tickets 24/7, they are on 24/7, and they are scanning and getting your information all the time. That is, we proved that at the Senate subcommittee. Like, that's the thing. In fact, their testimony proved that in the Senate subcommittee.
More questions?
I wanted to ask, where's the governor on this issue? Because one of the problems we always run into working on legislative stuff is whatever you manage to get done in the legislature, if the governor doesn't want it, there's a veto, and also that they just keep pushing on folks inside the legislature who know that they may need the governor to sign one of their bills. So even if it's bipartisan, which this sounds like you're getting some level of bipartisanship.
Yes, very much
If
so.
the governor is not on your side, it's a real uphill battle. Thank you.
You make a very good point. I think that Governor Kemp would sign it. He kind of indicated last time he would sign it, but since it didn't get there, I don't think he felt the full lobbying pressure one way or the other. That said, the lieutenant governor, who's now running for governor, but Governor Kemp will be lame duck this time next year, essentially. He was one of the champions of getting these repealed. So I think that our chances every year are just going to go up and up, especially if Burt Jones, who seems like the front runner now, becomes the governor. Like, I think he would definitely champion and like make this a big deal. I think he's actually going to make it a big deal during his campaign too, which again is going to, all the folks that are then going to get on the front runner of the governor's race coattails are going to go, yeah, I'm with him. We should. So I really think election year politics are going to help us in a big way. Not to get political, but here's the reality.
That was a very political question. I mean, that's fair. Next question.
So like I have very conflicting views because I'm also an advocate for street safety, all that jazz.
Who's not? Who's not?
And it sounds like a lot of the criticisms y'all have of the bill are more on the procedural side over the lack of everything you talked about. Are there any model bills that would allow for speed cameras while also having privacy protection, having the procedural issues, etc., that could be presented to legislators as like, look, this is a bill that will solve the problem and allow for this?
There is, and it actually is already in effect and passed and has been for a long time, and it's called an officer with a radar. It's called an officer sitting there and writing tickets. Like, from the time of the Model T, there have been traffic enforcement, and that's been constitutional, and you get all your rights. And yes, if somebody is speeding in a school zone, they should get a ticket, and that's the procedure that should be followed.
And I suppose hypothetically, you could say that a company A has to wipe all its data every 2 weeks, and we're going to trust them to do that.
But in the meantime,
Right.
they're just going to sell it to another corporation, and they're going to go, we
Right.
don't have it.
I
There-
mean, so I haven't seen a model bill. I will say when we've worked on these bills in California, for example, we've worked with road safety people to talk about, trying to get an idea from them about what solutions would actually work. Because I think at least the people that I've talked to agree that this isn't an actually workable solution for all the reasons you mentioned. So we've talked about things like, are there better street designs? That's not something that I, at the EFF, am super an expert on. And I'm not an expert on it at all. But talking about like, what are speed bumps we can put in? What are ways that we can, change the roads? So that's another thing that we've talked about. And then I do think, it's true, you'd have to trust the companies a little, and I don't trust them at all. But I do think putting things in the contracts about like what you are allowed to do with the data, what you aren't allowed to do with the data, and sort of those data hygiene things would go a long way.
There's a way for in Florida, they can use planes and helicopters to like, hey, I tracked you at this speed, but you're not really there, and some other cop pulled you over. So there's a way to do speed enforcement remotely, and yet still have all of your rights. So if my local sheriff's office had a guy looking at a camera and went, oh, that guy was just speeding, let me write that guy a ticket, and then we'll summon him to court and go, hey, I saw you speeding via this camera. There's a way to do it. It would still have to have a lot of trust, but if a police officer uses that tool, that's one thing. But if a AI run robot out of Seattle is running it and just mailing me tickets, like, what? Like,
Yeah.
that's not the way to do it.
And I'm glad you said the menacing acronym AI,
Yeah.
right? Because I do think that is inevitably where all this is heading, and then you have even less human oversight and less oversight.
And we've seen, not to get a tinfoil hat on, but we've seen how even our neighbor to the north has used these cameras in real draconian ways. Hey, you went to this protest, we're going to lock your bank account. Hey, wait a minute, you can't do that. Canada would never. That's a communist China something. Nope, Canada did that with these sorts of cameras.
Right.
And you're like, hey, wait a minute, we would never do that in America. But they could. With these cameras, they could. Now they're not, and they have no plans to.
Right. But of course, anytime anybody can put your license plate in a spot at a time, then they know your location, and
Right.
that is incredibly concerning.
Next question.
So I think you alluded to this and kind of setting aside the procedural, setting aside due process, and assuming it can be perfect. Do you have as much concern about perfect enforcement of the law through technology? You mentioned the guy with the police officer with the radar gun, where you have a police officer with the discretion of what to enforce and also the human limitations of the inability to enforce all the time. It seems to me like with the technology for this particular application or for many others, you have the opportunity for perfect enforcement of the law. Do you, at the EFF or in general, with regards to civil liberties, see a concern with that, particularly because of the proliferation of laws that do not have sunset clauses that continually just pile on more and more law on us as citizens?
So I'm looking at our legislative director is sitting in the audience. He might have I don't know. It's a good question. I mean, it's such a good question. I mean, I think working in legislatures, there are a lot of laws that frankly shouldn't exist. And sometimes when they pass, you go, well, how likely is someone really going to be to enforce this?
Yeah.
So I do have some concerns. I don't know that I have like a complete good answer for you, but yeah.
I want to address what you said, though. You said perfect enforcement of the law. And I'm about 3,500 cases in to criminal defense cases. And whereas I would love to tell you that justice always out, the truth always comes out, and that the good guy always wins, that's just not the case. So the idea of perfect enforcement doesn't exist. The answer to any legal question, other than can I get sued, the answer to any legal question is maybe. Maybe. Is it illegal to do this? It could be. Maybe. Am I allowed to do that? Maybe. How much would I have to pay? If the only definite answer is can I get sued, and that's a yes. You can get sued for anything by anyone all the time. Federal prisoners sue the moon every year. What you're really asking when you're asking that is, will I have to pay out? And the answer is maybe. So, the idea of perfect enforcement is itself a fallacy. That said, even if on a legal side you could create a system that perfectly enforced the law, that's not really socially what you want of any law, because justice isn't the only desired outcome. That you have to temper justice with mercy. I was in court earlier this week in Clayton County, right south of here, and you know, this is their third continuance. Young man was driving without a driver's license, and it was like, why don't you have a driver's license? And the 17-year-old goes, well, you know, there's a lot going on at home. And the judge, a lot going on. You're 17. What do you mean a lot going on? You know, his mom here? Mom stands up and goes, yeah, his father just got diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and his brother was just murdered, and he's, you know, was in a car wreck. And you're like, oh, he does have a lot going. Oh, that's why he needs more time to just go and get a license. You know what I'm saying? Like, perfect enforcement would have just hit him with a ticket, pay this, and get out of my face. But the reality of the law isn't, how do I make sure no one breaks this law? It's, how do we make sure that society can continue in a civil way, and the framework is these laws. So, you know, I have a lot of drug cases. You know, someone comes in and they've made some bad mistakes, and now they've got some addiction issues, and the state wants them to go to prison. Well, that's not going to help them, because they're going to get out of prison and they're still going to have addiction issues. What they need is help. But justice demands they go to prison. So perfect enforcement is, well, you did the crime, you got to do the time. But that's really not what is in society's best interest. And so they've created a lot of alternative courts and a lot of these really great sort of programs that can sort of, in a lot of ways, derail the train of justice that's about to run over you, and instead get this person into treatment, which is not really a perfect enforcement of this law, but it shows that this person is a human and not just a number, not just a case, not just another name on the docket, but like, there's a human here. This is somebody's kid. This is somebody's brother, a husband, wife. You know what I mean? Like, and if you can see through that, and it's the same with these cases, to bring it back, there might be a legitimate reason I'm speeding. One of these school zones that writes the most is right between the biggest area of residence and our hospital. You know what I'm saying? Maybe somebody's, well, sorry, you don't get a hearing, you're out of time. You just got to pay the $100. But even if there was perfect enforcement, let's look at the school bus arms. When they came out with, hey, if you pass a school bus with a school bus arm, coincidentally has nothing to do with the law, of course, they changed the routes of a lot of the buses. So now instead of pulling off of the highway and into the neighborhood, they stop on the side of the 5-lane highway and let the kids out and write 5-6 tickets for $1,000 a pop a day. Instead of, that happens at 3 different points in Spalding County. Coincidentally, has nothing to do with law, of course. I would never, of course it's coincidence. But I would estimate, 5 or 10 of these $1,000 no jury trial tickets get written every day, because now they're letting the kids off on the side of a highway instead of turning into the neighborhood and letting them off in a safe environment. So again, the kids are less safe because they're being set off on the side of the highway instead of what the law is intended to do, which is protect these kids. So if you had perfect protection there, like perfect enforcement of the law, then all those people would just get their tickets. But people respond to incentives, and that includes governments, that includes school boards. And a school board that is as cash strapped as the one in Spalding County, has a major incentive to get as many of these $1,000 tickets as they possibly can, up to and including, coincidentally, allowing kids to stop on the side of the highway and get off in the parking lot of a gas station and then walk to their neighborhood, as opposed to actually being delivered home. So mercy is the answer.
Next question.
You were mentioning this a little bit earlier. I was just curious as to how serious of a push there is for the reform aspect and having it be required to be or to be allowed a jury trial, because that would be, I work in a metro area county courthouse, and to suddenly be told that these 10,000 plus cases of this sort of thing you get every year, oh, it's now a jury trial, that's a very, very serious undertaking. It kind of feels like what we did with COVID catch up with jury trials, because all those were, but it feels like that probably about 5 times worse, but every year.
The disconnect is that, for example, in Spalding County, it's still the sheriff. And so the sheriff just writes the tickets, and it's somebody else's problem to enforce the tickets and to go to trial and whatever. So the incentives are certainly misaligned. I think there's a way to do it. I think there's a way to, but no one has floated an idea that is 100% sound yet. So-
we would prefer repeal.
Yeah, I
So,
think repeal's the way to go. And as far as the strength in the House and Senate, the House bipartisanly and overwhelmingly passed the law to strike these down, and it got hung up a little bit more in the Senate. But there's a lot less senators and a lot more lobbying money at that point. Not to say those two things are related at all, but
No.
never, I would never.
We got about 8 minutes left. Haley, do you have any? Oh, we got another question.
You were mentioning that in your experience, if you get a ticket outside of the time that because I got one and it was posted as school hours, I think it was on the weekend. And I got a ticket going 15 or 35 or something like that.
Yeah.
So I'm supposed to go Henry County and I already have a hearing. So disputed that they were issuing a ticket outside of the time frame that they're posting. They're
Yeah.
taking pictures.
Make sure to get a picture of the not to give you legal advice. I'm not your attorney, but make sure. I've seen in the past other people take pictures of the actual
I
posted
took pictures
signs
of everything.
and then go in and say, "Hey, look what time this gave me one. This not school zone time." In my experience, they go, "Oh, our bad, sorry," and throw it out. But every county runs them totally different with a different
Yeah.
court, a different procedure, and a different everything. So again, that's that equal protection of the law issue that we raised. So your mileage may vary, but in
I'll
general,
try. I'll try,
Yeah.
definitely.
the
but-
law does have a provision that says that if you swear under oath or sign an affidavit that's notarized and handed to the court that it wasn't you driving, that they must dismiss your ticket.
I actually don't know who was it. My car is driven by 3 people. So it could be anybody,
Obviously, I'm not your attorney. I'm not giving you legal advice, but
Okay, thank you.
This is what you've seen in other.
that's what I've seen anecdotally with other.
And bringing that up, though, there's one little interesting tidbit, and I've had this happen with a couple of the ones I've looked at. I have legitimately seen somebody get one of these tickets, and the intersection in particular that I'm talking about, it's more than just the sign. They have the little yellow flashers on the sign. And when they entered the school zone, the flashers were not on. But when they got through on the other side,
Those
they had started, and they got a ticket. And that was a fun case.
the flashers aren't required. The distance isn't it's not. None of that is specified in the law. The fix-it law did have a lot more provision. You had to put some stuff in there like that, but it currently isn't
The
required
variance in the way this is being enforced is
Is wild.
stunning to me.
as well. Again, equal protection.
Come on now.
So in my county, they have a lot of the flock cameras, not at the school zones particularly, but all over the county.
They're everywhere.
Yeah, those are different.
That is a totally different system.
Okay, because one thing that our sheriff had posted is that they had found a child that was from Seattle that was in our county.
Yep.
So that means that they're running all of our driver's license
That's
and
right.
all of our tags at every moment, every time we do
That's
a
right.
flock
Right.
camera.
The block camera works essentially the same way. It scans every single car on your way home. Not today because you're at DragonCon, but on your way home from DragonCon, you will pass a flock camera. It is inevitable. Like dirt roads, if you cross a border, you're going to pass a flock camera. And flock cameras are great in some respects. Hey, that was just a drive-by. This is the tag number. They're going to find that car.
Right.
But hey, I want to see where my ex-wife's going.
See, that's what I
Hey,
was
I want to see
like,
where the governor's wife's going.
yeah, that was my concern. Are they still doing the same thing, like just saving people's data? Like, who are these people?
So that goes into the flock camera system.
Mhm.
And so police and sheriffs have access to that system so they can sign on to their site and get that access. But HOAs can buy flock cameras and thus get access to the flock camera system. Private citizens can buy a flock camera. They're like $650 and then get access to the flock camera system. So
Because that was what I was thinking. Are they going to start like doing tickets with these flock cameras?
they don't currently. They have, and the flock camera can't tell you how fast you were going or anything. Like it can only tell you where
Where
you
you
were. But
Got
it was more that sort of a system that they used in Canada to track people that were going to the protest to then lock their bank accounts out. So they're not doing that in America, but they could. The technology is currently in place to do that. The digital cities, the 5-minute cities, or the 50-minute cities that they have in England, where they you know, bill you based on how much you drive because of green, you know, like that technology is essentially the same and could easily, that infrastructure could be used for this. Is there any plan for it to be? No. Like, are they using it for those reasons in America? No. But
But
you know, what if
infrastructure's all
somebody
there.
that
Yeah.
that won that election that we don't like comes in and starts using it? You know, like there's a lot of trust in government is going to do the right thing, and
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of that, even as I'm like,
Even as an elected official.
You are the government.
I am, and don't trust me. I mean, it's a trust but verify. You know, we were just talking before the panel began. Like people were calling for a forensic audit, and I was like, yeah, that's a great idea. We should totally do one. And they went, wait, what? You're in for the forensic audit? Yeah, absolutely. You should totally audit me every year, all the time. Here's my books, please, please, please. And if any government official reacts any different than that, question them harder. Like, you know what I mean? So that's the whole point of the technology that is the Constitution. That is what it's for, so that the citizens have the power and not the government.
Haley, do you have any final thoughts?
I don't.
You
Just
got-
thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for coming, everybody.
You
Get
got
a
anything
get a EFF Let's Sue the Government sticker.
Yes. I give a piece of
That
sort
would
of
suit him, actually.
I got an anti-item notice yesterday. The most important thing I learned in law school is I learned on the first day, which is always assert all of your rights all of the time in a nice way. All right, don't cuss the cop out, but politely decline to answer questions. Politely decline to be searched. Like always assert all of your rights all the time. Millions of people have died to protect your rights, and when you give them away, you don't give them back. The government doesn't give rights. Humans have to take those rights. And when I say that people have died to get you these rights, it is slapping their memory in the face when you just go, oh yeah, it's fine, you can search me. No, go get a warrant. Go and assert all your rights all the time. Politely, don't be a jerk about it, but hey, these are my rights, and they're more important than the time that I'm going to waste in court fighting it. Like, I didn't storm the beaches of Normandy, but people did to defend your rights. All right? It's worth fighting for, because if all of us don't defend them, all of us lose them. Period.
Well, if you'll all join me in giving our panelists a round of applause. That's our panel. Do remember to go in the DragonCon app and rate this panel so we can keep bringing you stuff like this. It really does help a lot, and leave us comments. Thanks. Have a fun Friday.
Thank you.